Welcome to the Inner Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Paul Rhyme. So if you're listening to or watching this podcast, I'm going to guess you're an entrepreneur, or at least you have an interest in entrepreneurship. So you already have started your own business or running your own business, or it's something you'd like to do. So you'd like to build something, you want to create something, and maybe you'll be a solopreneur. It'll be just you'll work independently by yourself, or maybe you fancy building a much bigger business. But either way, you have an interest in entrepreneurship. Now, if you have an interest in entrepreneurship, I have some bad news for you. I'll follow it up by a bit of good news, but I need to start with some bad news. And the bad news is this: 95% of all new businesses, when we fast forward 5 years and check in, 95% of them will have failed. So the bad news for you, if you're in the early stages of your business, you're just starting up a business, or you have an idea about a business, there's a 95% chance that in 5 years' time, you will have failed. Your business will not have succeeded. Now, please don't take that as being negative. I'm an entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurships. And you know, when someone has the spirit of an entrepreneur, you really just can't tie them down. No matter what the odds against them are, they will try it. So if that's your nature, if you really love the idea of being an entrepreneur, or you've started your own business and it's something you really, really want to do not let those statistics put you off. Just be aware of them. Because when you're unaware of a challenge or you're unaware of a problem, you can do very little to counteract it, to defend against it. But when you go into a situation aware that this is a potential challenge, now you have a big opportunity. And the opportunity is to understand, to explore why so many people fail and how can you be different. How can you be in that 5% of winners? Now, I'm in a very privileged position. I'm an 8-figure CEO, and I'm sure many of you would love to get there. But I won't give you the impression that I haven't tasted failure, because I have. And I can guarantee you, every successful person you meet has tasted failure along the way. So I've been thinking for the last year or so that maybe I would create an online course, and I would package it and I would sell it. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I came across a course called Business by Design by a guy called James Wedmore. So thousands of people are introduced to this course, and they're buying into the idea that they can create a business for themselves. They can create an online course, an online presence, and they can sell it. And this is how they will probably create financial freedom, create wealth, escape the 9-to-5. But what dawned on me in watching this and entering this community of people who had just signed up for this course was that most people signing up for this course are unaware of that simple fact that 95% chance is that in 5 years' time, they will have spent the money on the course, but they will not have built an online business. They will not have built a successful online business. Now, obviously, James Wedmore does not mention this. He does not say, by the way, spend $3,600 in this course and there's a 95% chance you will fail. He's not going to say that, but it doesn't change the facts. They're the statistics. I obviously don't know specifically what the success rate is in his course, and maybe it's a great course and maybe it's a lot higher. But I do know statistically around the world that 95% of startups will fail. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because if you understand it, you can do something about it. So for the purposes of my example, I'm going to say 1,000 people have signed up for this course, and it could be a hell of a lot more. But picture this line of 1,000 people, and you've signed up. So you've started a new business, or you've signed up for this new course as I have, and I'm standing in a line of 1,000 people. And here's the sad fact. Of those 1,000 people, 50 of them will make it. When we call back in 5 years' time and check in, of that line of 1,000 people, I want you to picture it in your mind so you have this clear. Of those 1,000 people standing shoulder to shoulder, 50 of those people can step forward, because only 50 people of the 1,000 will make the grade. The other 950 will have spent their money and they will not build a successful business. These are the facts. So of all their dreams of building enormous businesses, the reality are, of those 1,000 people, 50 will survive and build businesses, and 5 will build 8-figure businesses. They're the statistics, they're the facts. Now, as I've also signed up for this course, I become one of those statistics as well. As soon as I signed up, I step into that line of 1,000 people. I'm fully aware that a very small amount of people will make the grade, will build a business. But I have a huge advantage over everybody else. And the huge advantage is I know it. I know what I'm stepping into. So once I'm aware of that, I step into a unique position because now I can do something about that. I can deliberately do something to push my odds of stepping into the 50 people who will make it and the 5 people who will build 8-figure business. So the real question is, what can I do to push the odds in my favor? And what can you do if you start a business tomorrow, or if you're already in business? What can you do to move the odds in your favor? If you're starting something new, I want to give you a few key pointers that will make a big difference as to whether or not you will be one of the successful people. There are 2 phases of starting a new business, and I witnessed this a few weeks ago as I started this new course, and I entered into a community of people who had all signed up and who were all very enthusiastic and excited. You see, I call that first love. Every new business, every new enterprise starts with first love. And I'm sure you have some experience of that honeymoon phase. You're experiencing first love and everything is blissful. Everything is going to be wonderful. So the thing we all know about first love is that first love doesn't last. The honeymoon period doesn't last. And after the honeymoon period, well, we get into real life. And just like a relationship, for a relationship to move out of that honeymoon period and into real life, well, a few things have to happen. One is you have to accept that the relationship you're entering into is not all smiles and roses, that there's going to be some difficult parts of that relationship and you're going to have to work on it. You see, everyone who has signed up for this course is in the honeymoon period. And I know it because I am too. And they're thinking of the wonderful life, the wonderful success they will have when they create the course that everyone wants to buy. And it's a huge success and they change their life. And won't that be wonderful? Within a couple of weeks, or certainly within a couple of months of signing for the course, real life will dawn on them. And the real life, the reality that will be presented to them, that will eventually dawn on them is that, yes, there's a possibility they will build a big business and set themselves free. But they will realize that it's actually very hard to do, that you have to have something of value that you can create a course about. And you have to be able to present that in a way that people want to buy it. And then you have to go and market. And most people will fall at that first hurdle because now they realize, oh, I'm not going to be a millionaire overnight. Oh, there's going to be a lot of hard work in this because I'm going to have to do a lot of hard work to build a course. I'm going to have to do a lot of hard work to learn an online business, to learn how you create these, how you sell them. They realize there's a massive amount of work involved. And of that 1,000 people, huge majority will fall away at that stage. So that's your first advantage if you know that. If you know that you're going to move quickly out of the honeymoon period and into the real life period. But if you have that experience, you can go, I know I'm full of enthusiasm now. I'm experiencing first love. I know that's what I'm experiencing. But I know over the coming weeks and months, that's going to go away. The notion of me making a fortune in my new business is going to drift into the distance. And I'm going to have to face the reality that if I want to be successful in the business, I'm probably going to have to slog away at this for the next at least 2 or 3 years, probably just to get it off the ground, just to get momentum, just to get it profitable. From there, I can look to scale it into a much bigger business, but that's going to be the most difficult phase. And most people, when confronted with that, they just get deflated and they just walk away. And what do they walk to? They walk to another relationship, or they walk to another idea, or they walk to another course. Because when they do that, they get the dopamine rush. They get that feel-good hit and they fall in love again and they feel great again. And the fantasies come up again of the life they could build themselves. I have no problem with people fantasizing. I mean, I will encourage you to dream big and to dream of living an amazing life. Please do that. but realize that living an amazing life is not easy. If it was easy, you'd already be doing it. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. It takes a lot of work, persistence, commitment, and most people just aren't up to the task. So the first thing is realize of these 1,000 people standing by your side, you check back in just 2 months' time, and I'm going to say a good 50% of those people will have fallen by the wayside because they've realized, oh, this is just too hard. And they won't stick at it. It'll be easier for them to move on to something else. Now, once you recognize that you will experience that time of delusionment when you realize, oh, this is going to be harder than I thought. But if you know that's going to happen, then you recognize this is what happens. And by the way, it's happening to everyone along this line. But some of us will recognize it and persist, and most won't. I'm privileged to already be in a position where I own and run an 8-figure business. But don't assume I was immediately one of those lucky ones. Don't assume that I was immediately one of those 5 who joined the line of 1,000 people and stepped up to run an 8-figure business, because that wouldn't be true. It took me decades, but I've also failed in many businesses and I've failed in many investments. So what that means is on a number of occasions, I stood in that line of 1,000 people and I didn't step forward. I didn't succeed. Maybe because I didn't commit to it. Maybe because I just didn't know what I was doing because I was inexperienced. There have been many reasons why I've failed, but I failed on many occasions. So by the way, if you failed in the past, if you started a business in the past, or maybe you've signed up for a course and you've gone, oh, Paul, I hear you. What you're saying is I did that 2 years ago. I paid up for a course and I just never followed it through. Well, what I have to say to you is that's the truth for everyone who's been successful. But the question is, when you have that failure, do you let that failure define you? Or do you look around and learn and go, what can I learn from this failure? I'm going to step into that line again, but I'm going to be older. I'm going to be wiser, and I'm going to do something differently. So I've stepped into that line and failed on many occasions. But each time I failed, I asked the question, what have I learned? What can I do differently? How can I push the odds forward that I will be successful next time? So you want to be among those who step into the 5%. So I'm going to give you 5 points that will help you really move the odds in your favor. So the most important thing, and number 1, is to be aware of those statistics, to be aware of the facts. Do not let that demoralize you. Just be aware of the facts and be aware, if I'm taking this on, this is a big challenge. Look, lots of people want to be entrepreneurs and very few people succeed. Lots of people want to be millionaires. Do you know what percentage of the world are millionaires? It's about 1%. I think it's 1.2% or something. So everyone wants to run their own business. Everyone wants to be wealthy, and almost nobody achieves it. So when you set down the road of building a business, of being an entrepreneur, face up to the fact that it's going to be hard. It's likely to be a long, hard slog. And if you speak to anyone who has achieved that goal, they will tell you it was hard. It was worth it, but it was hard. So first, enter into it realizing this is going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. The odds are going to be against me, but I'm taking on that challenge. And by taking on that challenge, I know when I meet the roadblocks, when I meet the resistance, when I meet my own lack of enthusiasm and energy, I will recognize that's part of the journey and I will push on. Number 2 is to look and to learn. Most successful people are lifelong learners. And as I've said, hands up, I've failed on many occasions. I've stood in that line of 1,000 many occasions and not made the grade. But the difference between me and the other people who didn't make the grade and just gave up is instead of seeing it as a failure, I looked to what I could learn. I looked to what the other people who had failed were doing, and I looked more closely at the people who had succeeded, and I asked, what are they doing? And so the next time I stepped onto the line, I was older and wiser. It can be useful to have a mentor or a coach to help you along this. So if I want to be successful in an online business, I can just fumble along and do it by myself, or I can choose an expert, which is why I've signed up for the Business by Design course, because someone else has figured this out. James Wedmore has been doing this for 17 years. So I've chosen someone who is very successful in this and really knows what they're doing. And I'm going to learn from those. I want to learn all their mistakes because then I can be wiser, I can be smarter. And a lot of people go into things naively thinking they have to figure it out for themselves. But I've had many good mentors over the year. And there are many times when I've jumped forward in my business or solved major problems in the business. Almost all of those times, I've had someone to guide me. You end up having to figure it out by yourself and do it by yourself anyway. That's what happens. That's what an entrepreneur does. But I have learned so much from mentors. The key thing I'll say to you about getting a mentor or a coach is you have to be careful. There are a lot of bullshit mentors out there. I'm going to say that probably 80 to 90% of the people I come across who over the years have tried to sell me mentorship coaching, even non-exec directors who want to be a part of your business, huge percentage of them are bullshitters. Now, how do you define a bullshitter? I've been around a long time. I've met a lot of those bullshitters. I've spent money with a lot of those bullshitters. So I've built up a pretty good BS detector. And the biggest single BS detector you can have is you want someone who walks the walk, not just talks the talk. And most people talk the talk. They have knowledge, but they've never actually done it themselves. So if you're going to get someone to guide you and mentor you in something, make sure that the person has made most of their money doing the thing, not most of their money teaching you how to do the thing. You want someone who has actually built the business or achieved the goal that you want to achieve. That's the person. There's a completely different sense of someone who walks the walk than someone who just bullshits. So yes, definitely hire a coach, hire a mentor, but watch closely for bullshitters because they will just waste your money and delay you. Number 3 is crucial, that you recognize this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so if you've signed up for something new or you're starting a business and you're fantasizing that within 6 months, I'm going to have built a business, I'm going to have financial freedom, it's all going to be great. If you feed yourself that bullshit, the odds are you will fail. But if you go into something going, I know this is going to be difficult, but this is a marathon and I'm going to run at marathon pace. I'm just going to consistently go along. There will be hills that will be difficult to climb. Maybe the weather will change and it will be wet and cold. Doesn't matter. No matter what happens, I am on a marathon here and I am just going to keep going. And that mindset will get you through so many problems because obstacles will arise and you'll know they're there. You'll wish they weren't there, but you know I'm on a marathon and no matter what comes in my way, I need to fix this and move through it. So no matter what you take on as a business, one of the most important things you can have in your mind is this is a marathon. So you really want to have in your mind that I have a 5 or 10-year goal for this business, not a 6-month goal. Number 4 is to follow your talent. Now, if you're going to pursue a business, you want to be doing something that you're good at. And we all have talents. We don't all have all of the talents, but we have some of the talents, which is why we work with other people who have skills we don't have. But whatever you're drawn to, maybe you're a natural salesperson, maybe you're better with numbers, maybe you're better with production, but you'll find that you have talent, that you are more skilled in one area of business and one area of life. So whatever your core talent is, try and build a business around that talent for 2 reasons. Firstly, it's so much easier to be successful in something that you're naturally good at. You've just given yourself a much easier road. Secondly, you will persist if it's something that's close to your nature. I speak to this from personal experience because for a lot of time in business, I did things that weren't in accordance with my nature, that were difficult for me. And in doing that, it almost led me to a breakdown. It almost led me to burnout. That would have been personally devastating for me, but it also would have destroyed the business. So I couldn't have sustained that long term. Thankfully, I woke up in time. I recognized what my skills were. And I said, what are the talents I bring to this business? What are the magic ingredients that I bring that are part of making this business successful? Okay, let's focus my time and energy on those talents to make the business successful and find other people with opposite skills and get them to do the stuff that I don't like, that I'm not talented at. Because when you do that, you create sustainability. It's been much easier for me to be in business for a very long time, and I've been in business for 3 decades now. But it's been much easier for me to be in business when I'm doing something that's aligned with my nature. Had I tried to stay in business doing something that was against my nature, that was stressing me, that was just me not being me every day, I would have eventually failed. Be aware that whatever you're doing, you're going to have to do repeatedly for a long time. And if you're going to have to do something repeatedly for a long time, and you know there's going to be challenges, and you know at times it's going to be very difficult, and you know at times you'll want to give up, it's so much easier to persist when you're pursuing your own talent. And tip number 5 is to pursue your values. So I'm always very clear on my values. I know that my family are hugely important to me, my personal development, my personal well-being, and growing my wealth. So when I look at going down any road, I look at it through a prism of my values. And I go, if I'm pursuing this path in business or whatever I'm pursuing, will that support and honor my values? Because I've got into enterprise and businesses where the activity was going to pull me away from my family, pull me away from studying and personal development, pull me away from well-being. Now, maybe it was going to help my wealth, but it's not good enough to only support one of your values. So when I enter into anything new now, knowing it's a marathon, not a sprint, knowing I will need sustained effort, I look for something that will support my values. So before you enter into anything new, write down what's really important to you and ask yourself, if I pursue this business or this career for the next 5 or 10 years, will I be able to support my values? Obviously, there are times when we all have to work hard, when we don't get to do what we want, and we have to make sacrifices. But we can only ever do those in the short term. If you're going to pursue something in the long term, make sure you understand what your personal values are and that the work you're going to do will support those or will at least allow time for those. Now you're standing back in that line of 1,000 people, and most of those people do not know what I've just told you. They do not have that experience. They do not have that information. All they have is enthusiasm and hopium. And enthusiasm and hopium only gets you so far. But you have the insight now. You have the knowledge. And you have those 5 tips. And if you take time to implement those and you take time to really understand those, you have massively pushed yourself up the line. I can't push you across that line, but I know for certain if you follow these principles and persist, eventually you will get across that line. Thank you for listening. I'm Paul Ryan. This is the Inner Entrepreneur Podcast. Please remember to subscribe, like, hit that notification button, and share with all your friends. It really helps to grow the show. Thank you. Until next time, take care.